Welcome, welcome, initiates, beloved ones, to the Lost Art of Initiation Masterclass series. And today is our first masterclass. What is a mystery school? So let's just take a deep breath with me. In through your nose, out through your mouth. And just allow yourself to feel the exact moment you have stepped into. This is not just another masterclass. It is a remembering. There was a time when transformation was sacred, not just self-help. The ancients understood the awakening required structure, shadow, and ceremony. Across Egypt and Avalon and Lemuria and the Essenes deserts within the Venusian temples, the mystery schools held the original blueprint for human evolution. They were never about learning what others knew. They were about becoming who you truly are. The call that brought you here is the same one that has echoed through lifetimes. A soul's remembrance of the path of initiation. And if you've been called here, you've walked this path before. Maybe not in this body, not in this form, but your soul remembers what it means to enter sacred study, to seek not information, but transformation. So welcome into the lineage of remembrance. This is not just about joining something new. It's about remembering something ancient. So I just invite you, before we go any further, to just take a moment, close your eyes, soften your breath. Just let the breath soften your edges, clear your mind, and open your inner temple. And then quietly within, whisper to yourself, I remember. Feel those words move through your body like a pulse, a vibration of recognition. You've been here before. How many of you remember why you came here? We're not here to awaken. You've already done that. We're not here to heal. You've walked that path for lifetimes. We are here to remember. The path of the initiate isn't about becoming something new. It's about returning to what you've always been. It's the remembering of the soul's original design, the luminous architecture that existed before your name, your story, your trauma, or your achievements. So ask yourself quietly within, what comes after healing? Because if you're here, I know you've already done the work. You've met your shadows, you've tended your inner child, you've breathed, you've fasted, you've prayed, you've meditated, you've sat in ceremony, and you've gone through fires of awakening. And maybe there's still more to do. There always is. And yet, something in you still whispers, there's more. And that whisper, it's not confusion. That whisper is the voice of initiation. It's the part of your soul that remembers how this works. It is the invitation to step beyond healing and into embodiment, to move from fixing into remembering, from awakening into becoming. And before you walk the path, you must realize the path is already walking you. You didn't stumble here by accident. You were called. The same call that summoned initiates across temples and timelines is sounding again. And it has reached you. Welcome to the way of the initiate. Welcome to the remembering. Just let that sink into your bones, into your blood, into your DNA right now. We've gathered here together on this journey because we've been here together before. So thank you for saying yes to yourself and to me so that we can play in this world together. But before we walk further into this path of initiation, I want to share why I am the one holding this particular flame. Because this mystery school is not just something I've created, it's something I remembered. My life has been a living initiation. For real. Every descent, every loss, every miracle has been preparation for this moment, for this temple, for this work, for you. There was a time when my world completely unraveled, more than once. I've lost nearly everything several times in my life. Career, home, identity. I've descended into addictions, trauma, drug trafficking, homelessness. And yet from those ashes, through grace and relentless devotion, I began to remember who I was. What rose from that dismantling was not a new version of me. It was a remembrance of the priestess, the oracle, the healer who'd walked these paths before. And that remembrance has become the foundation of the Sacred Soul Alchemy Mystery School. I didn't study the mysteries from books. I lived them. I remember them in temples across Egypt, in meditations on mountaintops, and through direct transmissions in the Akashic records. I've walked through initiations in the temples of Isis, in the deserts, in the Essenes, in Venusian dreamscapes, and on this earth through heartbreak, rebirth, and devotion to truth. And I've also done a lot of study and training with masters in this earth plane. I hold a master's in the science of consciousness and human potential, and I'm currently pursuing as a PhD candidate. I've studied Vedic science, quantum healing, neuroscience, energy medicine. I'm certified in quantum healing, remote healing, divine light energy healing, Reiki mastery in 2 lineages, Akashic records, trauma-informed work, trauma-informed yoga. I've studied quantum physics and neuroscience. I have done the deep dive in both the academics, the information, and the embodiment and the transformation, studying in different places around the world. And I've undergone my own mystery school training, worked with indigenous shamanic initiations that have shaped my understanding of embodied divinity. And as the founder of the Sacred Soul Alchemy Mystery School and the creator of the Quantum Miracles docuseries, which has reached over 1 million people worldwide, I've devoted my life to bringing science and spirit, soul and somatics, ancient wisdom, and modern technology together. I've also just released my latest book, High on Life, A Prescription for Bliss, and is a roadmap for healing and emotional liberation and bliss consciousness that merges the science, the spirituality in a very easy way to understand for those that are at first level before you get into a mystery school. My work has been featured in Inc. magazine, Authority magazine, BuzzFeed. I am an executive contributor for Brains magazine and Awakened magazine. I've shared stages and collaborations with visionaries from all over the world, hundreds of them. And I've also done humanitarian work and on the board for several trafficking organizations. And I've spoke on thousands of stages. So I've brought together all of these pieces. But beyond the titles and the degrees or the press, what truly qualifies me to hold this temple is the lineage I carry in my bones. I have had, through Akashic records and through journeys of deep initiations in different parts of the world, remembrances of many of my lifetimes. As I have activated more and more strands of my DNA, I have remembered so many lifetimes, for being a slave girl in Italy during Roman times, to being a Essene oracle and a Magdalene code carrier, a high priestess of Isis, a womb keeper in ancient Egypt, a sister of Avalon, and a keeper of the rose lineages, a Venusian grid worker, a Syrian starseed, and I come all the way from the originations of the Lyran starseeds. And this is what's available and available for each and every one of us as we begin to wake up and remember our ancient roots. I've been traveling to ancient sites all over the world to remember, both through speaking and feeling and hearing the stones speak, to being through to portals in time, to remembrances with myself and in communities in our retreats in different parts of the world. And it's been massively awesome. And these are not just metaphors. They're harmonic memories, the frequencies that shape how I hold this field. And so I teach from that encoded memory and not just from education. Every initiation I've undergone in this life and others have become a living architecture within my mystery school. And so it's not just theory, it's a synthesis of everything I've lived, studied, remembered, and transmitted. It's where neuroscience meets gnosis, where the Venusian frequencies of the rose lineage meet quantum consciousness. It's where the human and the divine reconcile inside the body. And that's why I hold this temple, not to just be a teacher, but as a sister who's walking through the fire and remembers the stars and return to the gate to open it for you so that you can remember also. So let's begin. What is a mystery school? I'd love for you to leave a comment. What do you think a mystery school is? What brought you here? What are you wanting to learn during this series that we're going to be doing? We're going to be diving into different pieces and parts of mystery schools and the paths of initiation and descent. But I'd love to know what's called you here and what do you think a mystery school is, or what is the meaning behind here for you? And we're going to just start with simplicity first, right? Because simplicity is always sacred. A mystery school is basically just a temple of transformation. It's a sacred space that's designed to reveal the hidden architecture of consciousness itself. The word mystery does not mean something unknowable or hidden forever. It means that which must be experienced to be known. In the ancient world, the mystery schools of Egypt and Greece and India and Avalon and the Essenes existed to guide the initiate through a living process of death and rebirth while still alive, to die to the false self and awaken the divine self. They were not about learning what others knew. They were about becoming who you truly are. And so a mystery school was never a religion and never a program. It was and still is a living architecture of consciousness where the soul studies itself through direct experience. Across time and geography, each mystery school held its own specialty, its own frequency within the greater design. In Egypt, the temples of Isis and Osiris taught the science of ascension through sound, geometry, and sacred initiation chambers that simulated death. The Egyptian initiates studied the geometry of the soul, the way vibration builds form. They learned that every pattern in creation, from the spiral of the galaxies to the spiral of your DNA, follows divine proportion. Through fasting, sound, and light, they entered the tomb not to die, but to awaken. The Essenes trained prophets and healers and keepers of divine law. Yeshua, Mary Magdalene, Mother Mary, Anna the grandmother. They were students of purity and prophecy, teaching the embodiment of divine will through devotion and daily ritual. From them came the Christ Sophia path. That's the sacred union of the masculine and feminine intelligences. In Avalon, the feminine mysteries were preserved through the rose lineage. The priestesses who tended the waters, the womb, and the earth's dragon lines. They worked with lunar cycles, with the song of the land, and with the codes of sovereignty that carried through the blood and the breath of the goddess. And before all of these, in Lemuria, Atlantis, and on Venus, crystalline priesthoods of light encoded unity consciousness directly into Earth's grid. They remembered how to merge science and spirit, matter and light. They were the first earth temples where the body itself was honored as a living star. And so each of these lineages carry one truth, that you are the temple. The human body is the architecture through which divine intelligence expresses. And it says it even so in Egypt on the temple at Edfu. It says, we will keep creating temples until you remember that you are the temple. It's inscribed in the temple in hieroglyphs. We will keep creating temples until you remember that you are the temple. You are the temple. And I think that's some of the pieces of the things that we have forgotten here today. And the key is that that's what we're here to remember. To remember your lineages, to remember who you are, to remember all of the things that you've come to learn, to know, to understand. So what is the nature of initiation? To become an initiate in the ancient world was a profound commitment. It meant entering years of training, purification, and service to the community and to the temple. You might have been called an oracle, a scribe, a seer, or a priestess, but the title mattered far less than the devotion. The process required endurance, rites of silence, fasting, study, and the facing of shadow. So these ceremonies were designed to prepare the initiate mentally, physically, and spiritually for communion with higher truth. You were tested with courage and humility and your capacity to hold light without distortion. And that's the challenge that we're seeing right now in our modern world. I see it right here in Austin. I've seen it in other places. There is such a distortion in the spiritual community right now. Because there are people that have not studied, that have not done the embodiment, that have not done this work, that are now calling themselves these names, these things, and trying to walk the path. But because they haven't embodied that work, they're using plant medicines to escape and not integrate. They're not actually connected in a way, and it's creating this false field of I call it the spiritual Instagram guru syndrome, where we see these people that sounds really good on the surface, and then as you dive deeper into the work, or you meet them in person, or you see and understand that the process, the path has not been embodied. They haven't done the work, and I'm not judging this because I have been there. In 2015, I was teaching things that I had not fully embodied. So it's part of the path. I was awakening and understanding and opening things, but there were several pieces of things that I understood intellectually because I had studied them and I had had my moments of clarity and unity consciousness that I thought that I had figured some of it out, right? So this isn't a judgment. We're all on a path in a certain place. But I'm noticing now that it's becoming more and more distorted because there's a shift happening in the field. And so I sat in that. I remember a moment in 2015, and I wasn't teaching mysteries. I was teaching, it was like the programs we had back then, they were not quite spiritual, but I was not embodied in what I was teaching. And I remember my conference that year having this big aha around my own personal life and the dissonance that was showing up in my personal life with what was going on with how I was teaching in my world, in the work. And at that moment, I made massive shifts and changes in my life because I knew that if I was going to really serve in the world and I really wanted to help people, that I had more and more and more work to do. And so I've been on that journey of deeper work and seeking and more and more and more because I saw in myself what I now see in so many people. And so I understand how this is part of the process. And so within the temples of the ancient Egyptians and the Essenes and in Avalon, the initiate learned what was then considered secret wisdom, cosmology, alchemy, the laws of creation, the nature of afterlife, astrology, geometry, sound, healing, the moral philosophy of living in alignment with cosmic order. They learned how the invisible world shapes the visible, how self-mastery is the key to creation. And you know some of those people from known history, right? Yeshua, Mary Magdalene, Mother Mary are some of the simple ones that were initiates of these temples. They studied in Egypt and in India, in the Essene communities, carrying forward the unified teachings of spirit and science and heaven and earth. And today, the veils have thinned. What once held behind temple walls is returning to collective memory. We see courses, circles, and trainings all over the world because the earth herself is opening the archives. But becoming an initiate still means what it's always meant. It's a lifelong devotion to personal transformation, spiritual growth, and service. And it's not just casual self-improvement. It is inner alchemy. It's the refinement of the soul. Modern mystery schools, including my own Sacred Soul Alchemy Mystery School, honor the same pattern while speaking the language of our era. So we integrate quantum physics and neuroscience and DNA science with Hermetic and Egyptian wisdom and the Essenes and the Rose lineage and the Venusian teachings. The essence remains unchanged: inner union, purification, illumination, and service. We study these, the same three fires that burned in every temple: sound, geometry, breath. We work with the same processes to awake the luminous architecture within the human form so that divinity and humanity can meet consciously. Because all mystery work begins with alchemy. And alchemy is the union of opposites within. It's when the inner masculine and the feminine merge. They generate the sacred flame that transforms consciousness. This is the meaning behind every story of Isis and Osiris, Magdalene and Yeshua, Shiva and Shakti. Through this union, the life force rises, right? The Kundalini, the sacred fire, and the heart becomes the philosopher's stone. The ego dissolves, and you glimpse universal consciousness. And this isn't some metaphor out there. It is a literal energetic process, the activation of your pillar of light. So the question no longer is, how do I fix myself? That's where we've been for the last 20 or 30 years in a lot of realms. How do I fix myself? How do I heal? It now becomes, how do I embody what I already am? How do I take the formula of transformation and live it into the world? Through relationships, leadership, creativity, prosperity, presence. Because the true initiate doesn't just retreat from life. The true initiate becomes life's alchemist, transforming light into form, compassion into action, devotion into frequency. So then really, what is a mystery school? It's a living system for remembrance. It's a field where information becomes experience and experience becomes embodiment. It is the bridge between the seen and the unseen, between the intellect and the ineffable. It's where the science of the soul, sacred geometry, sound, frequency, purification, prophecy, alchemy, are stored as living technologies rather than abstract ideas. So I just don't think about fasting. I fast every new moon for 3 days. I'm using the technology of the ancient wisdom for this future technology and within my own body. And I notice the differences that happen when I do that. It enlightens my light body. I'm able to channel more. I can get more information. And so what we call spiritual awakening today, right, was once understood as a rigorous initiation into divine embodiment. And so the initiate wasn't somebody who just simply learned about the divine. They became it. So it's not just about, I'm going to study this or I'm going to study that. And the study is great. But it's, how do I take a piece of it and integrate it into my life? Let me give you an example. The first trimester of the mystery school in the path is called the descent. And what is the descent? The descent is when you're walking, right? What do you think about descent? You're descending down something, right? You're going into the shadow. So immediately, usually people are already in the shadow, in the descent, the dark night of the soul, having something going on when they're getting into that path of initiation. And it's the alchemical processes that you learn to transmute that energy. So you may learn processes, you may learn how to use your body and your energy field and do that. But the key is that as soon as you say yes to that you're thrown into the descent. Everything in your life becomes a part of that. It becomes a walking, living initiation. I call it the year of death for some people, right? I had my year of death. And I had literal people die in my life, relationships die, right? Like it was everything. I was in the descent. Because I had said yes to my initiation. Now that was in 2021 that I said yes. I was in Egypt, and I said I had my initiation in Egypt. I had been doing this work since 2010, had been doing work, transformational healing work. I'd had my dark night of the soul, right? I'd been homeless. You guys know the story. I had all of those things. But then in 2021, when I said yes to that initiation, when I didn't even know what I was saying yes to, it kind of just happened for me. I had the next year of my life was my year of death. And it's actually what created the book that came out this year. Because I had to talk about what happened after that year of death and the transformation, that I had pulled all of the processes that I had been teaching before, along with the new things that I had come into my being. So once you say yes, you're immediately thrown into your descent. Even after you've done all the years of work. I've been doing the work at that point for 12 years. And boy, was I surprised that there was a whole nother level. Wow, right? So across all ages, the mystery schools have existed for that one person, one purpose, to remind humanity that the body, the mind, the heart, and the cosmos are one continuous temple, and that within you lies every code of creation. So why? Why now, right? Why now? Well, I guess we're all here living this earth right now. We know what's going on. Humanity is standing again at a threshold, a collective initiation. The old structures of striving and separation are dissolving. Healing alone is no longer enough. We're being asked to move from awakening into embodiment, from knowing truth to living it. And so the mystery schools are returning not as institutions, but as these living fields of remembrance. They reemerge because the earth is ascending, and so are we. So when we understand the map beneath the chaos, because there's a lot of chaos, then life stops feeling like confusion and begins to feel like devotion. And that's what this series, what we're doing here with the Lost Art of Initiation, is here to illuminate. The ancient structure that explains why we are changing, what initiation truly is, and how your personal evolution fits within a much larger design. Because there's a difference between awakening and initiation. Awakening opens the eye, but initiation walks through the fire. Awakening can happen in a breathwork session, in a moment of grace, through trauma, through loss, through beauty. It is the glimpse, and then initiation comes after. It is the embodiment of that glimpse, the integration, the refinement, the practice of living as light inside density. Awakening gives you the map. Initiation makes you the map. And when we understand this, everything we've been through begins to make sense. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I want to take you guys on a brief walk through memory, not as history, but as a living lineage. These are not just distant myths. They're frequencies that are encoded in your cells. They're alive in your DNA, and they're waiting for recognition. So when we speak of ancient lineages, we're not just studying the past, we are remembering ourselves. Each era, each temple, each teaching left a fragment of the divine design, a thread that now weaves itself through my mystery school and mystery schools all around, through me and through you. So let's walk this little timeline of remembrance together. And I'm going to share with you the cosmic order of the mystery lineages that I work with and how this is weaved in. And you can maybe see if you remember a part of yourself in this. Maybe you've heard these names before, you've felt this. But I want you, as I go through each one of these, I want you to sit in your body and feel. Do you have a remembrance? Do you remember? Do you feel that? Some of you may say, oh my gosh, I believe I was Syrian, I was Palladian, I was Lyran. Or you may feel Venusian, or I know I walked as an Essene. Just feel in your body as I'm speaking of these lineages of the mystery school, and see what you feel connected to. And so to understand the path, the mystery path, we're going to travel way back, far beyond Egypt, far beyond Lemuria, far beyond Atlantis, and or even Venus. We're going all the way back to the original source harmonics that birthed all worlds. And these aren't myths, they're harmonic memories are encoded in your DNA. And when we speak their names, Lyra, Sirius, Pleiades, Venus, your body recognizes them. You remember. So let's start with Lyra. Lyra is the flame of divine pattern. Before time as we know it, there was Lyra. That was the first cradle of divine intelligence into form. The first, when unity decided consciousness, right? Source decided first to break off. It was the Elohim, the Lyrans, the Lyran frequency. Lyra is the flame of the original pattern. It's the luminous lattice of creation, the womb of geometry itself. The Lyrans were not a race as much as a frequency, beings of pure sound and light who sang matter into existence. They carried the law of one and the remembrance that all things are harmonics of the same source. So through sound, intention, and geometric breath, they wove light into form, and they seeded the 12-strand DNA templates that would one day express through our human biology. So before any planet turned, before Lemuria or Atlantis had taken shape, the Lyrans had already written the code of life. They templated Avalon, which was the harmonic blueprint for Earth. It was a planet in the Lyran system. And that was long before Earth existed in density. And theirs was a frequency of sovereignty and coherence, the knowing that creation is not built by force, but by resonance. Where there is harmony, there is form. Where there is dissonance, form dissolves. So Lyra is the source flame, the pattern of divine order, and the architecture of the 12-strand design. And I myself am a Lyran flame holder, a keeper of the original song, and I'm now translating that into human embodiment through the mystery school teachings on sacred geometry, frequency, and light body structure. And next we have Sirius. Sirius was called the flame of sacred law. So from Lyra's brilliance came Sirius, the master architects and scientists of light, who took the Lyran harmonics and gave them structure. So if Lyra was the music, Sirius was the mathematics, the precision of divine order. The Syrian orders codified intention into architecture. They mastered dimensional travel, crystalline technology, and water consciousness. They taught that all matter is living intelligence and that the key to creation lies in alignment with cosmic law. They birthed early temples across Vega, Arcturus, and Earth, and they brought the blue flame of alignment, the stabilizing current that unites emotion and logic, heaven and earth. And from them came the teachings of Thoth, the Dogon memory, and the sacred science of Egypt. Their frequency is masculine in the divine sense, not dominance, but precision, protection, clarity, and the sacred geometry of order. And the purpose was to translate pure pattern into usable systems, the bridge between formless intention and manifest reality. And after the Lyran Wars, my soul, my oversoul, part of me, that bigger part of me, went to carry on the Syrian codes of sacred law and crystalline intelligence. And so that's why in my mystery school, I merge and have studied quantum physics and neuroscience and ancient temple science, because that is the Syrian way. Truth is structure, light is law. And then we have the Pleiadians, the flame of emotional evolution. That was the heart of the cosmos, the emissaries of emotional intelligence and divine play. So if Lyra built the song and Sirius covered the symphony, the Pleiadians gave it feeling. They turned song into love. The Pleiadian councils infused the cosmic architecture with compassion, joy, and sensuality. They taught that creation is not complete without relationship, without empathy, without art. They brought the frequencies of womb wisdom and dream weaving and sacred pleasure. Their temples were woven from light and sound, not stone, and shimmering sanctuaries of breath, movement, and beauty. And they guided civilizations through feeling consciousness, healing through connection, evolving through intimacy, remembering through joy. And so on earth, their fingerprints remain in our capacity for like tenderness, laughter, and emotional depth. in the codes of the womb, in the instinct of nurture and co-create. And so they're here to evolve consciousness through love and emotional mastery. And so in my mystery school teachings, this is of the bliss consciousness, emotional alchemy, the sacred feminine arts of healing. And then we arrive at the Venusian lineage, the harmonic crucible of synthesis. On Venus, the temple planet, the harmonic crucible where the frequencies of Lyra, Sirius, and the Pleiades were woven together into living form. Venus holds the temple of Hathor, the galactic university of light to flesh harmonics. It was here that the star orders gathered to encode geometry with emotion, to unite science with sound, and to infuse light with love. So Venus is not just like a source lineage like Lyra or Sirius or the Pleiades. She is the embodiment field, the alchemical womb where sound became matter and frequency became biology. And through the Venusian temples, it was taught the art of beauty as technology, pleasure as sacred devotion, and sound as the bridge between worlds. If you follow astrology at all, then you know, like in astrology, Venus is that of love and abundance, right? And they refined the crystalline sciences of the stars into living energetics. That this was the kind that could be anchored within physical bodies. So Hathor's temples and the temples in Venus still vibrate upon Venus even now, resonating it as a beacon for those who remember how to translate cosmic harmony into embodied grace. And so from these temples, the initiates descended, carrying the codes that would seed Lemuria, Atlantis, and pre-Kemetic Egypt. It is why Venus is the archetypal heart of our solar system, the radiant field through which love becomes form. It is from where the Venusian and the rose lineage of the Magdalens was formed. And as a Venusian temple guardian, we were bringing sound and science and sensuality, and so we're awakening the body as the divine instrument for light. And then once the Venusian harmonics were complete, the codes could finally descend to Earth. And that is where Lemuria and Atlantis became the first Earth temples, or like the landing pads for stellar frequencies. Lemuria carried the feminine Venusian Palladian currents, fluid sound-based, crystalline, cooperative. It remembered unity and devotion and the sacredness of feeling. The Lemurian priestesses worked with water and light to heal the Earth's crystalline grids. Atlantis expressed the masculine, Syrian, Lyran energies, geometry, technology, experimentation, and structure. Its brilliance eventually became distorted through separation and control, leading to its fall. But even in collapse, the codes were preserved and carried forward. And from that Venusian field and the Lemurian and Atlantean continuum, the initiates descended fully into density. That's where they established the temples of Egypt, where Thoth, Isis, and Osiris brought Venusian and Syrian codes into matter. It's where the Essenes and the Magdalens carried the Venusian, Palladian, Syrian hybrid of DNA activations and preserving the Christ Sophia consciousness blueprint. And in Avalon, the feminine currents of Hathor and the Magdalene reflowered through the land, restoring the crystalline womb of Earth itself. So these lineages are not just a timeline. They're a spiral. Each cycle births the next. Each frequency lives within the others. So Lyra's song still hums in your bones. Sirius's light still structures your cells. The Palladian heart still beats within your joy. Venus still sings in your blood. Lemuria still breathes through your oceans, right? Avalon still whispers in your dreams. So we're not returning to the past. We are activating what has always been alive inside of us. And that is the purpose of the Sacred Soul Alchemy Mystery School. It's to awaken these codes, the Lyra laws, the Syrian science, the Palladian love, the Venusian beauty, and weave them through your own 12-strand DNA awakening until you remember yourself as the living temple of the cosmos. And so right now, we are at this threshold, right? The same threshold that Isis, the Magdalens, the Hathors once crossed. Only now the temple is the entire planet itself, Mother Gaia. Humanity is living through the descent before the initiation. The collective chaos we see around us is not a collapse. It is the fire of transformation. Systems built on striving, control, and separation are dissolving. And the nervous system of this species is rewiring to hold more light, more coherence, and more truth. This is an initiation on a planetary scale. So every soul, every structure is passing through the same spiral of death and rebirth that once took place inside a single temple chamber. And we're becoming what the ancients foresaw, the new human, luminous, embodied, unified. And yet, awakening alone is not enough. People are remembering faster than ever, but without the ancient frameworks of integration and embodiment, then we're lost. And that's why mystery schools are returning. They rise again so that we can allow for these embodiment and for this integration of these pieces together. And so we've spent years doing self-help and personal development and healing our trauma. And now it's asking for us to step into a greater movement, a greater way. And that is why I created the Sacred Soul Alchemy Mystery School after walking away from everything in 2022, shutting down the Intuitive Intelligence Academy after having massive success and going through that initiation where I had my year of death. I walked away. I walked away from everything. And I didn't know what was coming or why, but I knew that it was the right thing to do. I could feel it in my bones. And I took that year off. And then I started getting these messages that kept coming in more and deeper. And then in early 2024, as I was heading to Bali for a retreat with students that I hadn't seen or worked with since I'd shut down the company in 2022, I got this message. We were in Bali, they were there, and you could feel the energy, the entities are coming in, and they're there with us. And I was like, you're supposed to open a mystery school. I was like, yeah, right. What does that even mean? I didn't even, right? I was like, no, not me. Nah, not doing it. I literally said no. I was like, I don't understand. And then I got a little more defiant. And I was like, all right, is that what the guides say? You want me to open a mystery school? You fill it. And I went like that. And I said, if you fill it, I will see where it takes me, and then I will build it. And so after having been out of my community for nearly a year and a half, I sent out like 2 messages and was like, all right, this is what I'm doing. And here we are a year and a half later, and over 90 people through the Sacred Soul Alchemy Mystery School. And now I finally understand what I'm here to teach and why. And so the mystery school was born from this same current that moved through Lyra and Sirius and the Pleiades and Venus. It's a continuation of that harmonic lineage. It's translated into modern language and form. So through my own decades of healing and studying and direct initiation, I've realized that healing by itself is only the beginning. And what we truly need is a structure for embodiment. And so you need activations, you need ritual, you need ceremony. It's not enough to just go online and learn something and take a course, right? You want a way to walk the initiatory path consciously, to integrate the science and the spirit, to turn awakening into a lived frequency. And so that's what the mystery school exists to do, exactly that, to stabilize this collective initiation by giving it rhythm and coherence and sacred architecture. And so through the temple journey, through the chakras and the codes of the 12 strands of DNA, a remembrance of what the ancient orders once held, we now get to be reborn for this new human era. And so I'm not here to add more information. So, for those of you looking for more information and wanting to have, all the studying, but you're not actually going to actually show up and walk through the fire, then it becomes another course, and that's not what this is about. It's here to reactivate the architecture you already carry, to show you the map beneath the chaos so that your journey becomes devotion and not confusion. Your soul already knows this path. That quiet restlessness that you felt, that sense that healing was never the end, that is the call of initiation. It's the reason you are drawn here to this gathering in this precise moment of Earth's evolution. The mystery schools have always appeared at the turning of ages, and we are in one now. And so the veils are thinning and these frequencies are rising, and the codes once reserved for the few are awakening in the many. And that's why we have to look at this to understand the map that lives inside this school. It is the same spiral that's moved through Egypt and Avalon and Venus, and now it's encoded into a path that you can walk step by step, month by month, activation by activation. So you're not here to learn something new. You're here to remember what you seeded into Earth long ago. Take a moment and breathe. What are you here to remember? You're not just here witnessing this age. You are a part of it. You are the initiate. And the age itself that we are in is your initiation. So as we speak of descent, initiation, rebirth, just notice how your body responds. The pulse in your chest, or maybe the flutter in your belly. That's your yes. It's your remembrance whispering, I've walked this before. And so this path is not new. It's in your DNA. And we walk it together consciously. Awesome. So I'm going to share with you how the structure is of this, the 3 trimesters of how this breaks down, so that you understand more about whether you decide to join my mystery school or another mystery school or walk the path alone. You'll get an idea of how the spiral works in your own life. And if you're in the path of initiation, you can see yourself on this experience. So in the first part of the spiral, it's called the descent. And this is the first step. It's downward. It's into the roots of your being, into the underworld where power was buried. This is like nervous system healing, grounding, purification, shadow literacy. You repair the divine masculine. You practice the rites of grounding, sacred rage, right, transmutation, womb sovereignty, understanding how to work with all of the physical, hermetic principles, as above, so below. This is the below. Because what's missing in most spiritual traditions and why it's the fluff is everybody's trying to go up and escape somewhere up out there. And you need to be here, in your body. This is why we have so many physical diseases in our systems. And you cannot anchor higher frequencies into a dysregulated vessel. Descent builds the foundation. It is where the soil becomes ready for the light. And if you are not building that foundation, I have some people that have come through with our initiation, and they go back through the descent several times before they move on. They come into the temple activations and to the ceremonies, but in the coursework, they're going back in and doing the processes and the reflections and the pieces that have to do with the descent, because it's the most important piece for that foundation. Because everybody wants the light and the heart and the opening and open your heart and channel and to be an oracle and to see things and know things and do all of that. But when you do that and you're not grounded in, it's like plugging a 110 into a 220 volt. You're gonna, or 220 into a 110. You're going to burn yourself out. So then the next piece is the initiation. This is where the temple doors open inward, right? You enter the chamber of your heart-brain coherence, voice reclamation, third eye clarity, sound healing, frequency tuning. transmissions through, and you start to begin to work with your light body activation through water and crystal grids. And this is where you start to become reliable, where you can learn to feel, to speak, and to see with precision. So this next piece, the initiation, refines the signal. You become a clear channel for truth. And then the last piece is the rebirth. And I'm sure that as you're hearing this, you're like, maybe I've gone through this before. I've gone through the descent into the initiation, through the rebirth, and then you're hearing it again and again. And then the spiral rises. You activate the strands of your 12 strand of DNA. You awaken your Merkaba. You embody your pillar of light. You learn timeline work, retrocausality, quantum manifestation, abundance coding, anchoring bliss consciousness, and 12 chakra and 12 strand DNA harmonization. You remember your galactic origins. You channel with your super conscious mind, and you integrate into the collective grids. You start to step into that sovereign light leadership. This is where you start to begin to stabilize as that new human. You're coherent, you're purposeful, you're luminous. You learn the energy ways to play with energy in the field and move things around in different ways. And so this gets to be at the part of the play where you play up in the descent and then you go back in and you start over again, because every time you walk through the pattern of the spiral, you learn something new, you see something new, you feel something new, even though it was always there for you, because you remember more and more. And so we weave what the ancients held in separation, where we bring it back into wholeness, right? Neuroscience and the nervous system, quantum physics and sacred geometry, DNA repair and frequency medicine, and then the Egyptian, the Venusian, the Essenes lineages. And so that's where devotion and data shake hands. It's where the sacred and the scientific remember that they were never apart. But I want to share with you something, just so you know, when you're working in the mystery school, initiation is not neat. Sometimes when the temple arrives, it's a dismantling. So I've walked in those flames myself, right? The deaths, the endings, the loss of nearly everything. And then yet what rose from that was this mystery school, my book, and a life I could have never forced into being. So if you are in a collapse, hear me, you are not off the path. The path is walking you. And it's here so that you can go through it. Because as this school exists to hold you through it, so that the dismantling becomes coherent and not chaos. The descent is not the end. It is actually the beginning of sovereignty. And fire is not punishment. It's purification. It's the phoenix rising from the ashes that we get to have. So before I move on, I'm going to open up for any questions that you may have about mystery schools or anything like that you might want to know. We're going to be doing a series. I'm going to be diving deep into different pieces of the mystery school. So I'm going to be diving into what the rose lineage is, working with womb, the womb wisdom. We're going to be working through these different pieces, what the descent is. I'm going to be sharing over this series of masterclasses all of these different pieces so you understand. But today's class was just super simple. Just wanted you to understand really what is a mystery school and why they're returning for us right now, so that you can understand and see if the path of initiation that you're already walking because you are here is something that you want to join and be a part of in community. And if not, you're just going to learn a lot of really great stuff and be able to take that and use that in your own world in whatever ways. But we're going to be walking through the different lineages as how I work with them, what that looks like. And I'll also be sharing about, we have Egypt coming up in April, and then we're doing the Magdalene codes through France and Glastonbury in the fall next year. So there's a lot of interesting ways of, like, when you start to walk this path, like, what is the embodiment that you're seeking? How do you want to work with that? Because you are already in the mysteries. Okay, beautiful. So if there are no questions, if you want to, for those of you that want to stay on, I'm going to share a little bit more about the Sacred Soul Alchemy Mystery School, or you can go ahead and go now and join us in our next class. And you'll be getting, I think the next class is about the Rose lineage, and we'll be diving into the Venusian and the Mary Magdalene lines. But I'm going to share a little bit about our multidimensional journey on the Sacred Soul Alchemy Mystery School. So that if you are feeling the call and you want a deeper invitation, you can either speak to me, we can set up a time to chat, or I can send you more information, but I'm going to let you know a little bit about right here. So this is my invitation to those of you that are here and ready for the call to step into this multidimensional journey. It's to awaken your 12-strand DNA, to activate your pillar of light, and to initiate the new human within you. And it's one chakra, one code, one transmission at a time. And so the Sacred Soul Alchemy Mystery School is a living temple for seekers, visionaries, healers, and high-achieving souls that are ready to move beyond endless personal healing and into planetary transformation through inner alchemy. So this isn't about learning more, right? It's about becoming more of who you already are through the sacred technologies of ancient wisdom and modern science, sacred geometry and quantum fields, divine DNA activation and frequency medicine, time shifting, ascension, bliss consciousness. And so this path is not built on just the, borrowed teachings. It's a combination of study and the reactivation of lineages that you've already walked and the sacred contracts that you came here to fulfill. So whether you were once an oracle, or maybe a priestess of Isis, a sister of Avalon, a star seed, a healer, a guardian of the gates, this temple is a remembrance space that bridges timelines so you can awaken your original light. And so you'll experience soul level initiation into the ancient lineages and quantum technologies that are encoded in your DNA, multidimensional healing and embodiment that clears karmic density while activating your highest timeline and crystalline consciousness, sacred community, spiritual sovereignty within a collective of mystics and oracles and way showers, and people that didn't even know that they were going to be a part of this. I've had some of the most interesting, amazing people come through that had no idea. They came from the corporate world or different places, and they're like all of a sudden awakening into themselves, and where now they're channeling painting sacred geometry. Things are coming out of them. They went through the descent and healed, and then all of a sudden now these things are walking in their lives in such beautiful ways. And so the journey for us, we have in our first, again, the first is the descent. We do nervous system healing, quantum grounding. You learn sacred integration and soul retrieval, divine masculine repair, the hermetic foundations, where we work through this transmutation of energy. The grid works with Gaia and understanding how we work in our root and our sacral or in our solar plexus, and the 12 strands of DNA, the first 3 strands that have to do with the first embodiment in our earth grid. And then through the second trimester, it's our initiation, and we're working in our heart-brain coherence, our voice reclamation, sound and frequency understanding, the transmissions that work with the divine feminine initiations of Isis and Hathor and the Magdalenes, our third eye opening, and we're working through emotional intelligence and the heart and the throat and the third eye, and really understanding how to integrate these pieces together with those next strands of DNA. And then through the third trimester is our rebirth. It's the crown and the pillar of light. It's the strand activation, our Merkaba, our pillar embodiment, our timeline jumping, retrocausality, how to work in the quantum field, how to work with energy, understanding your own energy fields. We're bringing work from our quantum healing courses, galactic support, sovereign light leadership. And so we blend the Egyptian and the Vedic, the Venusian, the Essene initiatory streams with neuroscience and quantum physics and practical embodiment. And so you're held in a sacred learning field that honors these pieces, which is the science of transformation, nervous system, quantum, DNA of coherence, the spiritual path of devotion and truth, the practical embodiment of these higher states of consciousness, service, prosperity, leadership. And so over this time together, when we work together, you actually have 9 months that you'll receive immersive modules and initiatory transmissions. We have ceremonies, we have activations, and that align you with the cosmic rhythms and root your expansion into ritual. You'll learn astrology and cosmology. You'll work to understand geometries for different things, how to imprint things into your field. And we also have guest teachers and mentors that hold the temple with us. So we've had people that come and teach around the Mary Magdalene line, around sex magic. I have another new teacher that's coming in to work with us around divine DNA. I've been gathering amazing teachers from my docuseries and from other experiences that are now being brought in to work in this lineage with me. We also dive deep into the archetypes of all of these lineages. So you get to learn about Thoth and Osiris and Isis and the Magdalens and the Hathors, and dive into the energies, because the understanding and working with their energies and connecting to them brings that geometry, that light, those frequencies into your field. And yet, even though this is a 9-month initiatory journey of 9 months of modules, once you step into this path, you're in it for life. You can come back as many times as you want. Maybe you stay in the first trimester for the first year, and then you move on to the next one, and you're showing up to the activations and the ceremonies and those different pieces. But once you're in, you get to join us as much as you want, and we are here to help you and to guide you. And so the tools and the frequency technologies that you'll learn become part of your life long after we complete. Your transformation stabilizes at your natural state. Your life becomes the temple. So if your body is saying yes, that's not excitement, it's remembrance. It's your soul's recognition of its own architecture. So sit with that and feel that. If you want to have more information, you can go to quantum-miracles.com/mystery school. That's quantum-miracles.com/mystery school to find out more. You can email support@melissaminnick.com to speak with me directly or one of our team members about the school to see if it is the right fit for you, and to understand that this is a new path. And Heidi, yes. Oh yeah, you had to leave. I understand. I get it. My body has been purging since April 20th. Definitely since July. I have had some very vivid dreams that have felt like downloads. Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you for bringing it to the light. Yeah, beautiful. Wonderful. So again, quantum-miracles.com/mystery school. And if you want to speak to me or one of my team members and find out more about this path, we can chat about that. This is not a hard anything right now. I just want to give more information and let you know that there's options and availabilities to you. And thank you all so much for joining me today. I'll see you inside our community membership, where our community platform, we're in there, we're sharing, we're talking about things. I'll be posting more information. That's where you'll find this replay. And so we can play as we go through, and you're going to learn more and more about what we teach in the mystery schools and how to integrate it into your life. Okay, thank you all. Bye.